Hello everyone, it is Christine here and it's so lovely to be back with you. I am absolutely bouncing and buzzing with excitement about our 2026 Stitch Along. I have been knocked out by the level of energy and excitement that all of you have brought to it, and it's just so thrilling that we're going to have so many folks joining in and taking part in this. And I love that it's something that's accessible to so many people. That's what I was hoping to create, something that was free to take part in, something where people could use scraps, something where people didn't need to buy special supplies. Obviously you can always buy some tools and things that you want to use, but I wanted to make it sort of entry level, beginner friendly, but also something that was fun for people of all levels to do. So if you're watching this video and thinking, what is Christine talking about? I am talking about the 2026 Stitch Along, which is to make a slow stitch work mat. Now, some people are going to adapt the idea, and I absolutely love when that happens. So I know there's some folks wanting to make quilts, there's some folks making bench tops for in their kitchen, some people making runners or things for their dining table. So all manner of possibilities. Someone's making, I think, a mat to go under their sewing machine. So I love that. I love people taking an idea and making it their own. So if you haven't seen the previous video where I announced the project, it's probably a good idea to have a look at it. I'll link to that video from under in the description below this video. And I've also shared an information sheet on the project, some templates, which will start to make sense as we go through this video, as well as an initial vintage design of some little chickens as well, which I used for my little vintage embroidery here. So what I'm going to be showing you in this video is how I make my hexagons. Now, you can absolutely adapt it, and I'll give you some ideas for adapting it if you don't want them, for example, as thick, if you're going to be making them into a quilt or into something else where you want them to be a bit thinner. So I've been giving lots of thought to different adaptations you can make, and as I say, I'm sure folks will come up with their own. So I'll show you in this video how to make the larger hexagon, how to make the smaller hexagon, using both or using either a cardboard or if you have a plastic, like this is an Epiflex template. It's an Australian brand. I'm not affiliated with them, but I love these templates because I can use them with a bit of Yoo-hoo glue, and they're reusable, they're washable. They've also got these handy folds in them, which is great if you're doing some other sort of piecing with them. Not as relevant to this sort of project because we'll just be using the template to form the shape, and then we'll be putting it onto the larger base. So I'll show you both the cardboard where you can make it yourself. If you happen to have Epiflex templates, I'll just give you a look at how these work as well, but you can equally use a cardboard one instead of the Epiflex. So let's get started. I'll move off my little pieces out of the way. I've got my iron next to me, my very big hulking iron. It's not one of those little tiny sort of crafting ones. So what I'm going to start by doing is taking a piece of blanket. So this is just like a camp blanket. Probably it belonged to probably a kid that was in the Cub Scouts or something. It had the family name written on it. And I've got my template. And I'm going to get my friction marker. It doesn't really matter what sort of pen you use for this. Just whatever you can kind of see on your surface. The good thing about the friction markers is they do erase with heat. If you're in a very cold climate, they can actually come back because they're not fully erasing. It's just the heat is acting to make the sort of ink disappear. So you can see I've drawn there. I'm then going to get my big scissors, and I'm going to, for all my hexagons, I'm going to be cutting just inside the line. And I find a big pair of scissors is great for this because the scissors actually help you get a nice straight cut. Otherwise my cutting can sometimes go a little bit bodgy. Let's just make sure we're in focus, hopefully. So just cutting inside. Now keep all these scraps. They're great for when you want to stuff something, for example. So I just keep a bowl of them to have on hand. I'm just going to give it a quick iron to get it a nice bit flatter. Probably doesn't really matter, but hey ho. So here's one I have prepared earlier because we're going to need two to put together, but this method will apply equally. So at the point where I've cut it out, I do just like to make sure that it is broadly how it should be, that it's broadly lining up with the template, which it is. Then I'm going to take my piece of fabric. So when you're selecting your fabrics, if it has a direction on it, you know how some fabrics like this one have a very clear direction that you'd want it to be in. So you need to think at that point about the direction your hexagons are going to sit. So in my case, my hexagons are going to have the flat base. So I'll want to have a flat base at the base of the fabric. For this fabric, which is sort of multi-directional, it doesn't actually matter, but that is something worth keeping in mind if you're working with fabric that does have a direction. Now I'm first up going to show you what you could do if you're using the wool in your piece. So I'm going to grab my Yoo-hoo glue, but you could use whatever glue stick. These ones are good because they are acid free, they're washable. So yeah, I like them, and they don't sort of leave a sticky film. So I just use them to sort of help me along with my process. So I'm going to show you this version, which is doing the sort of the glue version, as it were. I'm then going to show you a version using the iron on the small hexagon, just to give you a few different ways. And I'll also show you a version where we're just ironing and gluing, and a version where we're using some thread to hold the pieces. So for your hexagons, if you're making it the way I am, you're going to have a front and a back. I'm choosing to make mine with the same fabrics at the front and the back. One of my lovely friends is going to be taking part in this, and she also shares YouTube videos, and she's got a different, she's going to be using a different front and back, and has some really lovely ideas. So once she's got her video up, I'll pop a link to that in our Facebook group as well, and in the community tab on here. And then so that's Sally from Dotty B, and then my other friend Kristy is also going to be taking part, and I think she's got a different method that she's going to use as well, which will be really good just to see everyone's. And then my friend Paula, so yeah, sorry, Kristy's from So Bits Kristy. Paula is Craft Datasaurus. I'll pop some links to all these folks below. And then my lovely friend Annie from Arty Farty Annie, she's going to be hopefully taking part as well, so I'll pop a link to her. Who else do I know that's taking part that's got YouTube channels? I think maybe Colette is taking part, but I'll check that first. And I think maybe Dawn was going to take part. So yeah, as soon as I know who else is going to be taking part, I'll be sure to pop links to their channels as well, just because it's so lovely to see everyone's different approach. So as you can see, what I'm doing is just using a tiny bit of the Yoo-hoo glue. Some people use the sort of the professional quilters glue. It's very expensive, I think. I've never actually bought myself any. I just use the Yoo-hoo glue, and then I'm going to use the iron once I'm done, just to iron it so you get some really nice crisp edges. And so at this point, I do always like to just check that it's still keeping its broad shape. It doesn't have to be super perfect, but if you see any edges that look a little bit squiffy, like that one just looked a little bit bowing out, you can just check on it, and then adjust anything that needs a bit of adjusting. So yeah, it's got a few tiny bits that are a tiny bit bowy, but I think we'll be able to, probably need to put another tiny little bit of glue there. But yeah, you don't have to go to super precision, because when you're actually sewing your pieces together, there's a fair bit of, I guess, flexibility that comes in the process of doing the actual stitching, and it does all hang together. So don't get too hung up on that, but I think that's looking pretty good. So at this point I haven't done any stitching on it because when we put our two bits together, we'll be doing a overcast stitch all the way around the edge. So I don't feel the need that I have to necessarily put stitching in here, but I can show you if you want to do that. I'll give you a little demo on how you can do that. So I'm going to use some of this Gutermann cotton. Again, these are ones that I've got secondhand. Most of my cottons are from sort of bundles of secondhand cottons, but this is a particularly strong one. So it's quite good to use where you want to be able to pull it. It's great if you're doing little Suffolk puffs or yo-yos. And so I'm just using a chenille needle. They have a larger eye, but they're a nice sort of, usually a nice pointy needle. They're a good all-purpose, all-rounder needle. So I'm just going to thread it and put a knot in the end. You can tie a knot or you can do the slide down the needle trick. And then I'm just going to, working on the back, so not coming forward through to the front. I'm just going to put probably 3 stitches in at each of the corners. Trying not to create a knot on my very first stitch is always a good thing. And so I'm catching just a tiny bit of the blanket underneath, but as I say, not going through to the front. And then I'm going to come over to the next corner. So I'm just catching that piece and that piece. Let me just make sure we're staying in focus, hopefully. So again, I'll just do 3 stitches. And just keep it sort of lying down flat so that you make sure it's not sort of bowing or anything. And then I'll come around to this next corner, put another 3 stitches in, and then round to the next. And so this method is particularly important if you're doing traditional English paper piecing, where you're then going to stitch them onto the next piece and you don't want them sort of coming apart. Because we're going to be, as I say, stitching the 2 together, that will stop them coming apart. But you might want to do this for the piece that you're going to be adding your little smaller hexie to, because it will just mean if you're doing then some embroidery into it, you just won't risk the edges sort of being annoying for you. So I thought I'd show you this technique, or you can just use a bit more glue. It's up to you. As I say, I don't find the glue makes it goopy or unpleasant to work with, so yeah, I'm always quite happy to use a bit of glue. So that is how we do that. So I hope as you're watching this, you're having a lovely day or a lovely evening. Hopefully you've had a beautiful festive season if you celebrate. Hopefully a bit of a rest as well. In Australia, it's our sort of summer holidays, although I was working today, but it's always a bit quieter at work, which is nice as well. So that's those 2, and it's also a good thing at this point just to have a look at your 2 pieces and make sure they're going to come together well. And don't worry again if it looks like I probably have actually this is slightly curved towards these corners. It's really not going to matter once you get the stitching going in. So don't be your worst enemy, your worst sort of perfectionist enemy at this point. Just go with it. So that's then your 2 halves. Now, if you were wanting just to use a piece of quilt batting because you wanted to make one that was a thinner one, you could definitely do that. I think with this one, I have been able to cut out and it would sort of hold its shape. I do think though, if it was a bit more floppy, you might want to do your folding of your fabric around your cardboard template, and then you might want to just insert your piece of batting into the center of it. So basically you just go through a process. Have I got a piece of fabric I can show you with? Let's just grab a piece of fabric here. I won't do all of it. I won't cut it out because don't want to use this fabric just yet. But essentially you'd be cutting around like I did on my other piece, and then you'd use your iron and iron around to get the nice sort of crisp edges. And then once you've done that, you could pop your pre-cut piece of batting into the center, and that way you'd have those nice crisp edges. You can also probably do that technique, well, you definitely can do that technique with the blanket as well. I think I actually did that earlier on this one, and that's probably why the edges are just that little bit crisper. So if you want really crisp edges, you can first of all cut out around it, always leaving a nice margin to make it easy to do the folding over. You can then do the ironing in to get those nice presses, because as you can see, these presses, once you put them in place, they do fold and hold really, really well. So those two are done. I've given you the idea of how you can just do a single layer. And if you did want to just do a single layer, what you could do is put the batting in one of the ones that you've folded over, and then the other one you could just have done around the cardboard, take the cardboard out and then put that on the back. So almost as though there wasn't blanket in one of these, you're still putting them back to back, but you just have your wadding in one of the layers. And I'm pretty sure that would work really well. As I say, for my work mat, I want the thickness. I want something that I can happily put my needle into and that has a bit of depth to it. So, template for the small one, and and these are the Epiflex plastic templates. So what I am going to do, and the other thing I was going to say is don't throw away your little scraps of fabric. They are really useful, and I have a really fun companion project for this year, which I will share in a little bit as well. I'll first of all get us all started on the stitch along, and then I'll share a wonderful little project that I think you might like, using scraps, and not just the scraps from this project, but other scraps from your table as well. But these fabrics are going to be they're going to make really cute scraps, and it would be a shame to throw them away. So now I'm going to move on to the smaller template, so the template that goes in the middle of our hexagon. And I know folks are going to ask me, because you've been asking in the comments in the group, what sizes are my templates. So my bigger one is about 6 centimeters along on one of the edges, and my smaller one is about 3.8 centimeters thereabouts. Now I know lots of folks use inches, so I will let you convert that using an internet conversion tool, because my head does not think in inches, alas. So this is a very sweet little fabric. It's actually, I think, an Easter fabric, but it has some really lovely sweet little images, and I thought I might use one off the cut edge here, because even though it's slightly cut, I think it will be the perfect size to fit within one of the smaller hexies. So what I'm going to do is cut myself a little margin around it. So with the Epiflex template, which is EPPIFLEX, as I mentioned, an Australian invention apparently. You can see through it, which is really handy, because you can kind of then do that fussy cutting to just get it positioned just right. So I think I'll have it about there, and so then I'll just cut myself out a bit of an area around it. If I cut carefully, I'll still be able to use the other designs in this piece. It's nice when they are sort of nicely spaced out. It lets you do that. So again, let's just get our template position so we can kind of think about how it's going to be. Something like that will be fine. So yeah, we'll be positioning it like that. So now with these templates, you can use a little bit of glue and they work perfectly well, to just put a little dab of glue to hold the template in place. So I'll show you that. But equally, if you were just using a cardboard one, again, you'd just, yeah, you could just position it there. I wouldn't probably put the glue on the cardboard one, but yeah, it's just going to help me when I'm ironing to just have it on, and it's just going to help me get this design sort of perfectly positioned for how I want it. So again, I'm thinking about the bottom being the straight edge. So that's why I'm positioning it like that. And then, without using the glue this time, I'm just going to show you how you can use the iron to create your edgy bits. Just get that. And the good thing about the Epiflex as well is you can iron it. I was thinking of showing you how you can use like a piece of plastic to create something like the Epiflex, but the problem is if you're doing this ironing method, it might melt. So that's why I'm not going to recommend that as an approach. So suggest using cardboard. And you don't have to use, you can use things like your cornflakes box has perfectly good cardboard in it. I tend to use these sheets of like their comic book display card. I think they put their comic books when they're keeping them in their folders and things, so it's acid free and things like that as well. But I just have a big stack of that because I use that sometimes to wrap my fabric around, my big pieces of fabric. Do be aware with the ironing, you do get slightly hot fingers, so take care, and you can always let it have a little rest in between. And if you don't want to use the iron, you can just sort of finger fold them and then put the quilty clips on them. I'll show you what I mean by, have I got one of those quilty clips handy? Yes, they are, they're over here. So these sorts of clips can come in handy for the task, they can hold it. We should actually just turn my iron down a bit because it is feeling rather hot. And some fabrics I think will sort of hold the crease better than others. As we know with linens, they'll take every single crease, won't they? Even if you've ironed them, a linen dress will look like it's come out of the crumples within a short time of wearing it. Definitely got into hot weather. We had a cold Christmas here, actually, one of the coldest in a few years. Nothing compared to probably what you have overseas, where you get white Christmases. But yeah, it was 20 degrees, whereas normally our Christmases are stinking hot. But now we're into the hot weather here in Melbourne, Australia. Because I know we have folks tuning in from all over the world. It was such a joy hearing as you were popping your comments below the last video where you're watching and joining from Spain and the US and England, France, Italy, many places. It's just lovely how our stitching can really connect us. So because this fabric is sort of, as you saw with the other one, it was really sort of sitting down and folding quite well. This one's wanting to sit up a little bit more. So we will just do that technique of going around with our thread to get some nice holding in place. And again, if you were using this, you could do exactly the same thing. So I'll just grab myself a blue thread of some description. Again, I'll use my Gutermann strong threads. And what did I do with my needle before? Oh, there it is. Sorry, my chair's creaking. I must oil it again. So, might Might bring you down a little bit because we're just going to be working at slightly closer quarters. Apologies for any shadows. It is still light outside, but yeah, I've just got a few shadows on the desk. And I'll talk in a moment about if you're embroidering your piece like I did with my chicken one, you would do the embroidery first before you then fold over, cut out and fold over and make your hexagon, just because then it'll be sort of easier to stitch, and then you can position your hexagon exactly where you want it once you've embroidered it. Unless you did want to do it, it's just you'll be going through more layers of fabric if you embroider it once it's on the piece. So again, I guess they're choices. There's not a right or wrong way for it. It's just thinking about the order that you want to do it in, and maybe try a few different versions and see which you like. I suppose the benefit of embroidering once it's on the piece is it will really sort of sink it down into, if you embroider it when it's on just one side of the piece, it will really sink it down into that, whereas on this one I embroidered it first and then attached it to the piece, so it's got a nice little bit of puffiness to it. So again, that's a design choice. That's something you can do what appeals to you for that. So again, I'm just working my way around and putting 3 stitches ish at each of the corners, picking up both sides of the fabric. And I like to come from the side which is the side other than where the fold is, where I can. And generally if you work around, you can sort of do it that way. Okay, and you can take your clips off as you go, which will make it easier for you. Do 3 again. So here I'm actually coming over from the non side, but I'll go down to here and then I'll come back through where the fold is. So sort of coming from the underside of where the fold is what I'm kind of trying to explain. Just make sure we're staying in focus. And sending some special Cheerios out to 2 dear friends who are both having a bit of a health battle at the moment. So I'm not going to say any more, but just hopefully if you happen to be watching, you know who you are, and yeah, sending you lots of love. Of course, I'd expect they'd have a lot more to be focusing on than my videos, but just in case you are, or if you happen to be facing something yourself, know that you're being thought of, and I'm sending you my best wishes too. So there we go. So that's now with the Epiflex, you can just flick it out. It is quite thin, but you could equally do that with your piece of cardboard. I think it would definitely work. And probably if it is like a cereal packet, it's just a tiny bit thinner than the other cardboard anyway. Or you can use even thinner papers. So some people use like pages of like old children's books because they kind of have a bit of substance to them, but they they can still be easily bent. But as you can see, this can be bent, so you'd definitely be able to get it out of your piece. So at this point I will just give it another little iron just to try and make sure that it's going to sit nice and flat. And again, at this point I would get my template. Problem with these templates is they do like to disappear, and just make sure I'm happy that it's nicely shaped. But as you can see, it's fitting in really well. So at this point we then attach it to one of our hexagons. So I would suggest you attach it to the one that if you're only doing one with blanket in it, for example, attach it to the one that has the blanket in it, because it's just going to make it nicer to be then stitching in and putting whatever decorative line you want around it. So again, I am going to use a little tap of glue just to hold it in place. You don't have to. You could put a pin in. For those that have been watching a while, you'll know that pins and I are not firm friends, so I will just use a tiny little dob of glue. And then we can work out what sort of stitching we want to do to attach it on. So I used like a blanket stitch here, used a running stitch, used French knots around this one, and this one I've just actually done knots throughout it. So lots of possibilities, I guess. I'm just going to bring you up again. Probably shouldn't have actually, because we are going to be staying down close. I'll bring you down again. Apologies if I'm making you seasick. And we need to work out what we want to use to stitch around. Do I want to use a yellow, or do I want to use, might use a blue. Yeah, I think I'll go with the blue. So this is again a vintage Finca, which I think is an Italian brand. Number 8. I will just turn my iron off because I don't think I need that again for now. So cut ourselves a decent length of it. Grab ourselves a needle. And I might show you, if we've got time in this video, I'll show you how you can then also add some embellishment to if you're using a fabric piece like this. And that would likewise apply if you wanted to be embroidering on it when it's on this piece, as opposed to embroidering first and then shaping it into your hexagon. So there's both those options. But again, just ask if you've got any questions or want any advice anywhere along the way. As I say, there's no hard and fast rules. I'll be mixing it up a bit myself. Sometimes it just depends on what I feel like doing on the day. So I've put a knot in the end of my thread, and I'm just going to pop through somewhere here. Because I really want the piece to kind of be shining, I think I'll just do a running stitch, and that way that's kind of showing you a basic stitch you can do to start off. So I probably should have actually just started that slightly higher up. Sorry, I'm just going to take that out because I just started that a little bit lower than where I wanted to be, which is okay. We can always pull out a thread and give it another go. So yeah, I'm just so excited to see what everyone's going to create. As I mentioned, I was chatting to some of my stitchy friends last night. We tend to have a little bit of a chat on a Sunday evening. We're all spread out across the globe, and it's so lovely to catch up. And yeah, 2 of my dear friends are going to be definitely taking part, and they were sharing sort of their thoughts on how they're going to approach it. And everyone's going to do different things, which is so much fun. And I always get so much inspiration from seeing what everyone does. That's why it's such a joy to be able to host something like this, but really for me to get as much benefit, I'm sure, as all of you are getting, in terms of being able to get that inspiration and just see how people take an idea and run with it and create. So with a running stitch, you're just popping up and down through the fabric and leaving whatever little space you want between them. So for this one, I'm kind of doing about equal distance of stitching and then an equal space. And yeah, just going up and down, up and down. And again, don't try too much for perfection. Obviously, if you want to make it look absolutely perfect, that's fine. But for me, because this is more of a sort of a slow stitch style piece, the perfection isn't the aim. The aim is to really just enjoy the process. To, yes, have something lovely at the end of it, but not to get hung up, not to get overly self-critical, particularly when you're starting out with something like this. Your first pieces might look a bit bodgy, as I like to sort of use that term, and that's fine because it really gives them that lovely hand-stitched look. You don't want it to look like it was generated by a machine or by a computer or by AI. You want it to look like it was generated by hand and with love and with some enjoyment, some fun, some enthusiasm in the process. And I'm sure there are far finer embroiderers and stitchers out there. I'm just here to share my approach. My work is always far from perfection. But if that helps you to feel free in your own creation, then that's a good thing. I want to make it, as I say, something that's approachable for everyone to have a go, because I just know how much my slow stitching and my creative practice means to me, and so to be able to share that with others means a lot. So where I've got the design here, I'm just going to put some stitches not going over the chickens. So I'm just going to sort of, spread out my stitches a little bit differently, just where the chickens are. Where the container is coming down here, I don't mind putting some stitches over that. It was just I didn't want to put it over the little, oh no, they're more ducks, aren't they, than chickens, little duck's bill. So yeah, the ideas are bubbling forth from me at the moment. As I mentioned, I've got an exciting ideas for scraps, but I thought I'll get us all started, get us all feeling comfortable with this, and then I'll share that project in coming weeks. But don't throw your scraps away. I use scraps so much in my projects, whether they're smallest pieces of fabric like this or really tiny ones can be really useful. And so that's what I want to show you with this other project, is that how you can use really tiny, smaller pieces of fabric so that nothing has to go to waste, and how you can use those ends of threads and things like that, the orts as we call them, ORTS. Just thinking for a moment there was staining on here, but no, it's actually just the shading on the container. I was just having a little cheeky look at my other bit of fabric going, did I burn it with the iron? But no, it's just the shading all around the piece. So I'm just going to keep going around. It's this sort of stitching that I do find very relaxing. A good running stitch is relaxing because it's just that up-down motion. And as I say, you don't have to strive for perfection. So as you can see here, I'm actually stitching on the piece that I haven't even done the holding stitches around, and it's not coming apart or anything. So, but those holding stitches will be good particularly if you're not adding any glue to your piece and want to avoid using glue, or are worried about your fabric sort of being a bit difficult to deal with. It's just going to help make it that little bit more manageable. Just going to put a tiny stitch in there. And then I think we'll have time to just do a few little embellishing stitches. I thought particularly this chicken and this one, but probably the one there as well. I might just use a little fine yellow silk thread to just put some little fluffy bits on the ducks. I think I said chicken again. Clearly I can't identify my animals today. And I hope you can't hear the aircon going. It's, as I say, it's been a very warm day, and upstairs gets quite warm, so particularly with the iron on and the lights. So I thought, no, I better leave the aircon on so that I don't get too hot. I took Travis the Labrador down to the river for a swim this afternoon, which he loves. So there we go. That is that all stitched down. So you can then just tie it off on the back. I like to just sort of pass it through the blanket, and then I'll just do a second one as well. I usually do a little second knot for good luck. And then you can just cut it off. You can leave a little bit of an end because this is all just going to be enclosed in the piece. So I think we do have time. So I'm going to get some of this yellow silky thread. There's my little wrap. Let's find the wrappy wrap. There we go. That's where it is. These are little reusable plastic wraps. They come in very handy. This silky thread is lovely. It's always a little bit tricky to work with, but it is a lovely thing to to stitch with. Let's get our needle. Oops, nope. Thought we'd gone through the hole, but no, we did not. There we are. So again, for doing the knot, you can put your thread on your finger, put your needle on top, and then wrap around clockwise. That's clockwise, like a few times, so maybe 4 or 5 times. Hold those wraps, slide them down your needle, slide them down your thread, and you will get a nice little knot at the end. Hopefully you could see that. It is quite fine thread. So what I'm going to do, I think, is just put some little yellow tufts of hair next to where the black little tufts of hair are showing on the duck. So not over the black bits, just kind of complementing the black bits. They probably maybe be barely visible, but we'll know they're there, and it's just, I guess, giving you some ideas of, if you are using bits of fabric, how you can just add a bit of slow stitched embellishment to your sort of feature fabrics. But as I say, we'll also be doing embroideries like the chicken embroidery, and I'll be sharing lots of those. I've started pulling out ones out of the set that I can scan in for my first release of embroideries. I thought I'll put quite a few out so that maybe there'll be kind of enough embroideries for you to select from for each of the months. That way I won't have to constantly be kind of each week putting ones out, and that way you'll have lots of variety if you want to kind of stitch ahead, if you want to do more than one a week. That way it's giving you a bit more freedom, and that way I can give a lot of variety, because lots of wonderful suggestions or requests have been coming through from folks, and so I want to make sure everyone's got something that they really want to stitch. Although you don't have to do the embroideries, as you can see here, you can use lovely little bits of fabric to great effect as well. So it's very flexible. You may even just want to do the outer hexagons and just make something from that. So all approaches are welcome. As I say, no stitch police here. You do you, and trial things out. Share them in the Facebook group if you're part of that, or share them in the community tab here, so that other folks can see what you're doing. So I'm just doing up and down stitches all the way around, which is very similar to what I did on this, just using a perle cotton on this one, on the other one, whereas this is a silk cotton, or a silk, really, not a cotton, a silk thread that's quite fine. So I was thinking I could even potentially do a little bow on this one too. I did grab out some red silk ribbon, but maybe I should first of all just finish doing the little hairy bits around. I think it's quite cute where you can just see the little hairy bits around the head. As I say, probably not totally necessary, but hey, it's just fun to have these little flights of fancy and try things out. Just sort of gives them a bit more texture, like they really are popping out of the box. But yeah, I'm just so glad that everyone's as excited about this project as I am. I've been really wanting to share it for quite a while, since well before Christmas, but I knew everyone would be busy with their sort of Christmas end of year things, crafting and all the other things. And so I thought, no, I better wait, bide my time. But then to share it and just have something that enthuses you but enthuses other people, it's just super exciting. And to have something that we can all just put our own marks and our own experimentation on, and as I say, something that hopefully is friendly for anyone to give a go to, because I know some folks have said, I haven't embroidered in years, but you don't need. As I say, I'm not a master embroiderer. I am a slow stitcher who indulges in some embroidering. So I'm sure there will be many more skillful embroiderers out there, so please don't judge me on my my finesse or my skills, but I will share what I've learned, share what I experiment with, and hopefully that does help folks. So yeah, never claim to be an expert. I am just a curious creator. Put a few more around the top of here. Not even totally following where the sort of the tufty black ones were. I'm just adding a few more so that each of them have a lovely amount of little feathery tufty bits. And as you can see, you can get a fair bit done in one session. So I do, again, hope this will be approachable if folks want to make one per week. But again, you just, you do you. There might be a week you want to make two. There might be a few weeks when other things are happening in your life and you don't make any, and that's absolutely fine. Do it at your own pace. Do as many or as few as you like, and feel free to just be part of the community however you're approaching the project. All approaches are fine. As I mentioned in the earlier video, you can even just choose to make these into little coasters, or you can make smaller ones and make them just into little brooches. All sorts of possibilities. A few more tufty bits in down here. Put a little longer one there. Could have also done their wings, but I think I'm just going to leave it as their little heads. I think that's quite cute. So I will tie that off. Again, because it's the silk slinky thread, I do like to put a few knots in, and I will leave the end just that little bit longer to sandwich that in the middle. So do we have time to, don't know if I want to, because I guess it would catch potentially a little bit as well. Maybe I'll come back in a future episode when we've got a bit more time. I want to show you now how to sandwich the two pieces together and to stitch. The good thing about having this padding on them is you can come in later and stitch just going up through the sort of the top layer without going through to the back, so I can always still add some things on, particularly if I tie a little bow with my ribbon. I can then just put some little stitches to hold it in place, and likewise if I wanted to kind of have the ribbon over here, I'm sure I could still do that through the piece. Now, what colour do I want to use around it? I was thinking I might use this yellow. I've used all different ones. I've used like a yellow. I'm tending to use sort of a thickish thread, because I want the sort of the outer bits to kind of be part of the decoration, I guess. So this is again one I got second hand, but it's like a perle sort of cotton. So again, let's thread up our needle. But yeah, you can use anything. You could use embroidery floss. Use what you've got. I do always look for threads when I'm at the op shop or thrift store, etc. Because it's fun just to have different things. So again, doing the knot, I'm putting the thread down on my finger, putting the needle over it, wrapping it around. That's actually not clockwise. That's anti-clockwise, isn't it? Yes, anti-clockwise. And then sliding down. You know, when you do things automatically and you can't even think how you actually do them. So what I do with the first stitch is just secrete it in, again, not going through to the front, and I'll just pop out near one of the corners, but you can really do it anywhere. And then I'm just going to do overcast stitches. You could do like a blanket stitch, but overcast has been working quite well. So I think that's going to be good enough to carry on doing. But again, if you wanted to do a different way of putting your pieces together, that would be fine too. How have I managed to get a knot before I've even done 2 stitches? I do not know. Now just make sure we're staying somewhat in focus. So I'm just going, basically just bringing the 2 layers together. I am going to make sure that little thread where I've stitched the corners sort of together stays inside, and I'm catching on the little buckle on my ironing board, my portable ironing board. And yeah, I'm just spacing them out sort of just enough to I guess not make them so close together that it's going to take forever, but just keeping them close enough that it creates a really good seal of the 2 pieces together. And this would be where if you only had either batting or blanket in one half, the other half could just be your fabric, and you're still stitching them together in this same way. But yeah, I'm looking forward to what others share about how they are planning to put theirs together. This is just a method that I came up with that I was really happy because it gives a really solid piece that will sort of be up to the task of being on the desk and not coming apart, and just a way that we can every week be kind of finishing a hexagon and having then when we put the whole piece together, it's not going to be such a big job as if we're having to do a lot of finishing at that point. And that you can even start stitching them together if you're happy that you've got sort of like a set of them that you want next to each other. I think I'm going to wait a ways into the project just so I can really then balance the different motifs and designs around the piece, and also balance the colours. But again, you could definitely use different types of fabrics on front and back. I'm just wanting to use the same, partially because I'm using some fabrics I really love and I want to have a whole sort of piece of them that's uninterrupted on the back, so that I can enjoy looking at them. So just make sure as you're doing it, you can also use your little quilt clips. They can come in handy to just hold it together while you're stitching it if it's moving around too much on you. Poked myself. So here's where you might have one corner that's just not quite exactly meeting up, but don't worry, it will all come together in the wash. Apart from when you get a knot. What's it doing? It's trying to knot itself as it pulls through. Come on, there we go. I swear my threads decide to knot whenever I do a video. I'm sure they don't knot as much. Maybe I just don't notice it when I'm not doing a video. So yeah, here's where it's just sort of slightly longer on this one, and so I'm just going to pull it a little bit, just get it to sort of sit nicely, and then once we round the corner it will all come together well. But yeah, if you've got your own sort of English paper piecing methods that you like to use, absolutely use those. I just thought I'll show you how I'm approaching mine at this stage, and then you can adapt from there. We're going to line up here. Yep. So yeah, I think almost an hour, and you should be able to obviously, yeah, not doing much embroidery on a piece. If you're embroidering, then that might be, yeah, however long it takes you to do the embroidery. But even like the little chickens one I did, it didn't take too long because it was just the simple little like scattered running stitches really to make it. So yeah, I think it's going to be a very doable project, which is good. It's nice to have those projects where they sort of start to materialise without too much stitching. Sometimes the big projects, they can be a bit intimidating, can't they? Because yeah, you feel so far from having a finished piece, whereas with this you're kind of getting those little mini finishing wins that, yeah, keeps your spirits up. And kind of regardless of how many pieces you do, you can, yeah, as I say, use them individually, or as soon as you've got a few pieces, you've already got a little mini mat. Even if for some reason you have to sort of stop at that point, at least you've got something that is usable as it is. Okay, and then again, just making sure they're nicely sort of lining up at the corners. And as I say, this stitching just helps to, yeah, sort of deal with any slight differences. It's not made by a machine, it's not laser cut, so it will not be perfect, especially when it's made by me. I can guarantee you it will not be perfect, but it will be made with love. And that's what counts, really. Oops, got another notch. So I'm just going to line them up again at this corner. And yeah, do check your felt or your wool or whatever you're using in the middle and make sure that it will be easy to stitch through. The wool is always lovely to stitch through. That's why I love using wool blanket. But yeah, if you're using a batting or something that you'd normally machine stitch through, just make sure it is still going to feel okay for you to hand stitch through. Because I don't have a sewing machine, so I won't be showing any sewing machine techniques in this. I won't be able to really advise on them. This is an entirely sort of hand stitch project. Obviously, if you want to adapt it to using a sewing machine, yeah, you're most welcome. You can still absolutely, yeah, share what you create, but yeah, I won't really be able to advise on that side of things. I'm a committed hand stitcher. So now that I'm around to here, I'm going to put my needle through a little loop and make a knot. I'll just get it to sit more at the corner, not right there. Oops. And I'll just do a second little knot as well, just to be sure. And then once I'm happy that it's nicely secured, I'm going to pass my needle into sort of between the two layers, and then pop it out. So there's no thread showing on the back, it's really just the threads running in amongst where the blanket is. I'm then going to pull it tighter, so the thread will just pop back in to the piece. So you can see it's just popped back into the hole, well, not into the hole, into the lining of the piece, and you don't have any thread hanging around the outside. So less than an hour, just on an hour, and hopefully that's given you a really good sense of how you can use blanket, how you can do a double-sided sort of, well, a piece with blanket in both pieces. Some ideas if you do have some sort of wadding, an idea if you want to do a single piece of blanket and then just yeah, iron around and make your other piece where you're just ironing your fabric around a piece of cardboard and then putting it onto the back, and just showing you how you can do a basic running stitch, but we'll explore other stitches and how you can add some embellishment to your fabric pieces. But as I say, we'll be doing lots of vintage embroidery designs, so I think that will probably be the next video where we start to do some embroidery together, and I'll show you some some different techniques that I like to use in my embroidery. So thank you for watching. We've got chickens and ducks, they go great together, and I will see you soon. Thank you everyone. Bye.